Call to order a meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission, July 6th. First item is notice of intent. Wishmere Estates Limited Partnership, 23 Snow Inn Road. Proposed maintenance dredging. You're on.
I'm Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering here on behalf of Wishmere Harbor Club, and we're proposing to dredge the portion of the channel that's on the side of the Wishmere Harbor Club and keeping it to a maintenance dredging because that channel is sometimes dredged by the town when there is money in the budget. And our proposed design is to stay with what they have already permitted. So the -6 mean low water for the depth, and the 1 to 3 slope is what's the existing slope out there. So we're not trying to cut into the slope any further. But they feel with this that if there's any time where the town cannot dredge and it becomes a navigational hazard for any of the vessels that are trying to dock along their wharf, they'd be able to have the permit in place to dredge there. And we did receive the letter from the Department of Marine Fisheries, and we understand that they have concern about the dredging and how close to the side, but like, as I said, we're really staying along the same design that's already dredged, and we're not trying to cut the slope any steeper than what's already been there, what's existing, and we're not trying to go any deeper than the -6, which has been historically dredged. And then I know they wanted the time of year restrictions, which we understand and are agreeable to the dredging time of year. And also, in order to place the material on the beach, they wanted to know make sure that it's the equal grain size, and we can do that and make sure that we take the sample and do the sieve analysis for that. And the construction activities to avoid the barge being grounded, it can definitely be done around the tide cycle. So, any questions?
Amy, you want to comment?
First, if you could just talk a little bit about the Shellfish Survey that was done by Pam Newbert, and then I'll ask some questions.
Okay, there was the Shellfish Survey done. She did find 27 different clams, the 4 soft-shell clams and 23 quahogs. They can be relocated if that's something that could happen, but also when I went to waterways, they said there's a potential that if you would give notice to them, they can give notice to the ones that do do the shellfishing there, and they could actually do it right before. Yep. And that would actually be a good time of year, they said, for that to happen. So it wouldn't have to interfere with any of the shellfishing that's done there.
Yep. And did John Rendon have any comments about the navigation?
They actually said that they are definitely in agreement with this because that would help them out.
Okay.
I think the dredging, that if they could do it, it would help them out as well.
Yep. I do not have the town's permit in front of me, but I thought this was a little bit more than what but I could be wrong, again, if you have both
So
the dredge footprints.
this is the one that we're proposing only, we're showing the whole thing, but really it's gonna not, the cross-section doesn't start until at least 10 feet from wherever we can find the toe of the revetment.
Yeah, it shouldn't start.
And then the 1 to 3 slope. So you can see that ours is really matching. There's very little to be dredged when this survey was done.
Okay.
Though it silts in over time. So what I have, John Rendon gave me the coordinates for their
perfect.
channel. So this shows you, it goes out further, but
right.
This shows you where theirs comes in. So they don't come as close with their depth, but again, our depth cut doesn't start until over there.
Yep.
So it would probably line up pretty closely, and then we might be coming a little bit closer up in here with the wharf. We're not going any further than them. We're not going onto the other side of the channel as well.
Now, where you come up against the bulkhead, are you going to be going right up against the bulkhead, or is that still 10 feet off?
No, we still do the 10 feet off
10
of
feet
any
off
structure.
of any structure. Okay. I did speak with Heinz Proft in Natural Resources, and what he recommended is also what you said, as far as allowing the commercial shellfishermen, if we were to allow this, to go in ahead of time and harvest the shellfish. I was interested in potentially looking at how long, especially the near shore area, how long between dredging years, or how many years between each dredging, to see if there could be some sort of shellfish put back there, if it was gonna be, 5-10 years between each dredging or not, but we don't know.
I know in the past they've done, the town did it in, I think it was maybe 2009, 2010, according to Barnstable reports, again in 2015. And Heinz Proft had said that he wasn't getting as many seedlings as he had been getting, and that's why I think he hadn't been
Oh.
putting them in this channel.
They'll be getting more as we, as a lot of our people who are required to mitigate are now going into their
Okay.
program, so that'll be good.
Yeah.
Let me look back at, I did my review like 2 weeks ago on this, so. It is both town and state map for cohogs, but however, it is really right next to the channel and partially within the channel that the town already dredges, as you said. Project would increase water circulation into Winchmere Harbor, improve water quality in the harbor. Improve the sediment quality by removal of unsuitable material. And then, of course, your typical erosion, or not erosion, but siltation controls would need to be in place. Other than that, I don't really have too many questions other than I've only ever seen DMF say you can't dredge within 25 feet of a salt marsh. I didn't know they also said, they also suggest 25 feet from the mean low water line.
Yeah.
So
And
that's kind of a new one on me.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's already dredged within.
Within the 25 feet.
is-
Okay,
I think I had it marked on 25 feet somewhere in here,
Yep.
so it's already dredged
okay.
within that 25 feet.
Yep. So by my estimation, about 50% of what you're proposing to do is an area that's already permitted to do by the town, and the other 50 or so % is additional dredge area closer to the shore, so. And it's not a lot of material, it's about 99 cubic yards over the 18,700 square feet, so you're not talking about a lot of material coming out. I'll leave it at that for now.
Ernie?
Question, so with respect, your comments, your introductory comments, is this intended to supplement or replace the town dredging?
Supplement, so there's times when they don't have it in the budget, and just for the safety of any navigation to that wharf that the Harbor Club has, they'd like to be able to have this in place, just in case the town can't do it.
Okay. Does this impact the pilings for the piers? I mean, how do they, are they within the 10 feet?
Well, so if, up in here,
Yeah.
it would be, the rocks really come almost out to where the
Toe
pilings
comes
are,
out, yeah.
and then we'd still stay off of where those are.
Okay, because
So
it
that
looked
would-
like there was about a
I know, I should have made a
six-foot,
probably cross-section there, but,
6-foot space between, or body of water between the revetment and the pilings, the edge of the pier.
yeah, we'd make sure that there was that 10-foot buffer between, like, a structure, which would be the pier or the rocks there.
Okay.
That way not to undermine anything that is there.
So where the
You
pier
give it
bumps
that-
out, then you'd go 10 feet off of
Yeah.
that then, right? Okay,
That's what I would,
all right.
Just so you know, Ernie, we're kind of on we rotate harbors, essentially. Alan, we recently did, we hadn't done it in a while, but then we typically, Winchmere is every 4 to 5 years. It goes Winchmere, Saquatucket, Round Cove, Alan. We try to give them all a fair shake. So we can't do them each year.
Yeah.
But just so you know.
Okay, good. So it was last done, you say, in 2000 and,
they actually did it in 2015.
They did,
They did it
yeah.
last
Okay.
July.
all right, good.
That's on-
The center part of the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. The area where you're going to potentially replenish or put the dredge material, the beach area, is that owned by the same people?
It is, it's in there, it's on their property, but it's also permitted by the town for placement of
Yep.
the fill. So if it's
Okay.
beach quality sand, which it has been in the past, if it's beach quality sand, then we would request that it be able to be placed there in small lifts so that it's not like a large hump on the beach. But then if not, if it's determined that the material does not qualify, then it could be dewatered and placed in a DEP-approved site.
Okay.
Yep.
And is there a timing issue with respect, if it's not beach replenishable, they said they would dewater it on the Harwich Port Yacht Club parking area or something? Is there a timing issue with that, given the window that the DMF is given?
I can look into that, but I'm not sure if there's a timing issue on how long. Actually, Don, how long does it take to dewater and?
They could do the job before January 15th.
You could do it, yeah.
They'd
Fall.
probably do it if it were a dewatering project sometime in November.
Yeah, but do they have the space at the yacht club, or at the
Yeah, they just finished,
marina?
yes, they do have space.
Mhm.
John Hour's done a couple of other sites in that area.
Mhm.
So more than likely, he'd be the candidate to do that work, and he manages that. Harwichport Boat Yard, and they have used that for other projects. So yes,
Okay.
it would fit.
So they won't be storing boats there in between October and January, or whenever it is?
Most of that area is all cleared out by that time.
Yeah.
Store 'em up in the parking lot up in the back area, right towards the beach.
All right, good. I think that was the questions that I had.
Did you say this has been approved by Waterways?
Waterways did approve the plan, yes.
They did approve it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
John?
think I submitted that to you
Yep.
last week.
This is just learning for me. when I
Okay.
ask these questions, okay? Is this the first time a private entity has done this kind of work that normally is done by a community?
I know that private homeowners have dredged in front of their properties before.
They do it for themselves?
Yes.
Right.
All right,
It's-
the town did it in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
For how long would that be expected to, I don't know, but, be dredge effective?
It really depends on the storms, it depends on the amount of vessels coming in and out, and the size of those vessels, if there's any prop wash going on from the sides, and, if the storms are pushing any of the any of the sand in or anything like that.
Okay,
It's
well, that
really
makes sense to me.
dependent on it, so just to be sure, that's why they wanted the permit, in case something happens and it all of a sudden silts in some area close to their
And
work
you've been
there.
testing to show that the 2015 dredging project by the town is not effective, that this is 2016? It needs to be done again?
Well, the area just needs to be widened. Where the town dredge is in the middle of the channel, they would like to go closer to the side than the town did.
Is that because
For
it
dock,
should have been done and wasn't?
where we are required to do the channel, we're not required to do the entire width.
What might be considered what the private properties, or what people normally do
Yep.
when they're on the property?
Yep.
abuts?
So the town does mostly the navigational channel in
Yep.
and out of the harbor there, but they would like to get a little bit closer to their wharf so that when the vessels are coming up to dock
Okay,
there.
all right, and I'm following it all so far. My question is how, once it is now, if not deep and widened, how long should this last? Assuming we don't have monsoons and typhoon and everything else, how long should this, so is it 5 years?
I don't have survey data from every year to determine how much it typically silts in there, or how long it would take to silt in. I mean, I don't know how much the town is taking out every so many years
I
that
don't
they've
know.
been doing it.
Somebody behind you might know.
Do you know on that one?
Well, when we got the townwide permit, which was for dredging the channels, which is as part of, and the nourishment component to that townwide permit, it's typically 5 years.
Yeah,
Oh, 5
They're
years.
about-
Navigable channel needs to be maintained.
Okay, not a fair question, but I'll ask it anyway. This is a first time for the Witchmere Harbor to kick in and do this kind of work. Do you suppose that it may be done again in 4 or 5 years?
For
What
the
work
Witchmere
that you're
Harbor
doing
Club
now,
or for the town?
that you're doing the project, the widening, the dredging beyond what the town would do. Do you see this is this a one-time event, or do you see it
They want to
occurring
as
again?
they want to keep this as maintenance dredging, just in case it does silt in on their side. They can
Yeah.
be able to continue to maintain a little bit wider towards their side.
If the town hasn't done hasn't widened, it deepened but didn't widen the area, how did that, prior to your proposed project, how did that affect Witchmere Harbor itself? The area, Now, the people, the private ownership took care of it. Did the Witchmere Harbor Club, they also had to do all of their own work prior to before you came on board with this proposed project? How was it taken care of before?
For the dredging?
Yeah.
I don't think they dredged, I
Haven't
mean, they've
dredged.
placed, the rock revetments have been placed there, the wharfs, the pier's been placed there, but they haven't dredged
They didn't do
in that area
Didn't have to.
before.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's no permits from
Okay.
previous.
I'm a little smarter than I was before.
Brad?
Yeah, I guess I got a couple questions. The 99 cubic yards, is that to meet certain permit thresholds, state or federal?
Keeping under the 99 just keeps it so that we don't have to do the water quality.
401.
That
If
one.
you're
401.
under 100 cubic
Yep.
yards, you don't have to file for a 401 water quality cert.
Yeah.
You
Right.
still are required to submit the testing information to
Right.
Mhm.
So you won't necessarily issue the permit,
Mhm.
but you still have to track the material, so you have to report to him whether it's beach compatible or if it has to be dewatered.
Right. So you think, it's not a huge effort to get that permit, so you think you'll be under that 99?
Yeah, and if
routinely?
we ever go over that amount, then yes, they'd have to go for the permit.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount.
No.
Well, it's a site that has, I think, a lot of shellfish. It is fished recreationally a fair amount, not so much commercially. But I think that maintenance dredging is an activity that can be permitted despite the presence of that resource. It needs to be dredged to support navigation, so I don't have a problem with that. I know the spot pretty well, and it's surprising that it was dredged just last year, because it has some spots that are pretty shallow at low tide right now.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's the concern with the Harbor Club, is those are the areas that the town's not, they're doing just the navigational channel, and so this should be able to move into some of those shallow areas on their side.
It's particularly, you see where the two jetties kind of are parallel at the very mouth where the two jetties come together. That's where you see that kind of island almost. And that's because it's reflecting off the other jetty and depositing there, the shoal. So,
And so the footprint almost fits mid-channel. It's not going too far over mid-channel towards the Stone Horse side.
No, yeah, they're not gonna dredge on the Stone Horse side, they're just gonna stay dredging on their side. I mean, there will be, depending on how much material has silted in, there could be a little bit of sloughing from the other side,
Right.
but, yeah.
Yep. And I think with the DMF comment at the 25 feet, they might not be that aware of the specific site and just how narrow it is.
yeah.
25 feet isn't really practical. from-
Yeah, because then it comes down
Not
to
here,
about
it comes out.
10, 15 feet of dredging, and it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Not to throw anyone under the bus. But I think for the shellfish, I wouldn't mind discussing some ideas on not just having commercial guys come in there to remove clams.
Yeah.
I think that can help, but I also think the proponent should be responsible for some type of monitoring and perhaps removal. When the sediments that removed, are they going to a barge or to a land staging area?
it-
Barge,
and then brought over to the beach if it's
right.
if the sand is compatible.
Will there be any potential to remove shellfish at that point? You know, when you see, sand staged in certain places, you often see some dead cohogs. Not many, but it's something you do see. And so I'm wondering, is there any way to capture some of those cohogs at that stage? The commercial guys are gonna, take a good number, they won't get them all. It will benefit just those harvesters, it won't benefit the public. So I wouldn't mind seeing the proponent responsible to do something, to either try to capture the ones that are in the piles and return them, or have some type of seeding effort to compensate for that loss.
What I was gonna suggest, because it's a little bit different, but we did find some shellfish there, more than just a couple, is that once they, have the commercial guys go in there, then let them dredge, and then if there's a period of more than 2 to 3 years or something between dredge efforts, that's enough for when you put seed down for the stock to replenish over a year or two. before their next dredge, but it might be like kind of a wait and see for the first year or two to see how often you would need to dredge in there.
Right.
Unless they wanted to, I mean, unless you wanted to put a shellfish mitigation on there, similar to what we do for docks and piers, and it would just be put in the town, you know, the town waters. But,
Yeah,
I
I'm not
mean-
sure I see the benefit of reseeding that
I
same
wouldn't-
area. It's gonna be
right,
dredged again.
right,
Which
I-
just goes through the same thing all
Right,
over again.
I understand that, but the commercial guys, they don't often fish here.
yeah,
It's a larger group of recreational fishermen that come in here,
Right.
and so they're not gonna really benefit from that. And so a couple individuals who will sell these will come in and get them, and that'll be it. And they're also gonna hit the side that's not dredged as well,
Yeah.
because that's a shallower area.
Right.
And it is more sandy on that
Yeah.
eastern side. And there's quite a few quahogs there, so they're gonna hammer that side, and so it's not gonna really help the recreational sector. So I wouldn't mind seeing some thought where it wasn't just one or two commercial permit holders that came in and got those clams. Either the proponent's responsible to check the sediments and return those quahogs to the ocean, or some type of a seeding effort that may seed close by. So it's something for everyone to think about.
Yeah. I don't think you would need like what we typically do for docks and piers, in terms of the 30 bushels for 3 years type thing.
Right.
But more of like a one-time, if they were to seed.
Ed would like to make a motion with conditions.
I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now, so I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. The other thing I'd like to talk about is having, you know, I'm not sure if you even have it, but a monitoring report that comes back to the commission with information on, you know, what you found, what you took out, you know, what you saw from marine life in the piles. So some
Mhm.
type of a brief monitoring report is a condition as well.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I'm thinking about.
That could be good conditions for motion.
Yeah, I don't know what the practicality is, Don, of having a crew on a barge look for shellfish. These are
Yeah.
pretty big piles. There's been
I've
beaches.
seen it done in large dredging projects, but that's really large dredging projects where they have the screen, like a box
Yeah,
with a screen where
Yeah.
they're putting the material right through there and and that actually catches any debris, any large rocks, anything that's not beach compatible. But I haven't seen it done locally on smaller projects. We've
It's an
seen-
interesting thought.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do it, because the material, if it's beach compatible, then obviously you can collect them quickly because your material's gonna go from barge
mhm.
to ramp to beach. When you spread it on the beach, that might be the time to check to see if there's any
Yeah,
recoverable shellfish. Then you could, based on the shellfish report you already have,
Mhm.
compare that number, those two numbers, then do a seeding effort.
oops, sorry, I want you to go up there.
So you could do it maybe that way, is that a,
Yeah.
and that would be part of your report that you're looking for, so I don't know if we could do it, or Pam Newbert might, I don't know if she has any room left on her budget from the Shellfish Survey, but
I'd
there,
like to see some
Or just-
accountability for the proponent and not just have two, how many commercial guys are permitted, Howard?
Not many.
Two.
Well,
So
my
I-
only other thought was that when they're gonna do the project, let Heinz know, and then Heinz, somehow we can let the recreational holders, if we have their emails or something, know, and just say on this day, they're putting sand up on the beach, if there's any, if you're interested to see if there's any, like, come down and get it, essentially.
Or like an informal survey. I mean, if I'm around,
Right.
I'll come down.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see the process. I know I've seen some quahogs in Dennis and other Harwich beaches when this happens, and it's not many.
Yeah.
But this area, I think it has a fair density of quahogs that you may or may not come up with. I think they're heavier on the east side, so
Mhm.
you may not get into them that badly.
Yeah.
But some responsibility of the proponent to look out for shellfish instead of just having the commercial guys come
Yeah.
in.
Well, we could definitely put the condition on there that they're to notify the natural resource director of when they're gonna be putting the sediment from the barge onto the beach, and he can let the recreational permit holders know if they want to come down there and harvest anything that might be left.
And
Or
also-
Heinz can, maybe Heinz would be interested in them, I don't know,
Right.
and
But I
putting
guess I'd
them
like some
somewhere.
reporting requirement. where
Right.
They report to us and they let us know what they see X number of cubic yards removed, rough estimates of what they see for shellfish, and it could be done in coordination with Heinz. But I think some information that comes back to us on whether this is a real issue or not. And
What if the commercial guys reported it, because they're gonna get most of them?
well, we'll have, yeah, they can report to us as well as to what they removed. I mean, it's a public resource, and is it just gonna be a couple
Yep.
paychecks for 2 permit holders?
Yep.
You know, so what can we do for this public resource that might help the future seed stock for cohogs? So probably just a combination of reporting and some action
Okay.
to see what happens. So that's all I really have for conditions.
Okay,
I
we
think.
need a motion.
Are you suggesting, Brad, based on the reporting, to consider some mitigation? So let's assume that there is a significant number of cohogs in there that are being displaced.
Well, how about a condition where, with the first dredging operation, that the commission revisits the operations based on the results of the monitoring report?
Right,
And
for potential mitigation,
Right.
additional mitigation. Yeah, that sounds good.
And if it's 6 cohogs, then that's fine, you know. And if it's a lot,
Correct.
I'm just a little concerned about, you know, having a real few individuals benefit from that.
Yep.
And where it's very much a public resource. But I recognize the need. I think it needs to be done, and so I think it should be permitted.
So what I'll put in the conditions is that after the first report, you're gonna have to do, I'm guessing, a post-dredge survey anyways.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, we'll have the data from the commercial guys, we'll have a better idea of what really was in there, in addition to the sediment quality. And then, give me that information, I'll give it to them, and they'll decide if they want to ask you to come back for anything.
Okay.
Sound good?
That's agreeable.
Yep. And, you know, a 1-page report that comes back to
Right.
commission on the timing, what was removed.
Right.
What was seen.
You can help me on that condition.
Yeah.
Okay, need a motion.
Well, okay, I move that we approve the proposal for 23 Snow Inn Road to conduct maintenance dredging in the harbor channel to Witchmere Harbor with the discussed conditions on shellfish monitoring.
Okay, we need a second.
Second that?
Second by John. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Catherine.
While we have coastal engineering here, do you want to skip, we actually have next on the docket anyway. Never mind, proceed. 6
Okay.
Saquatucket Point
Aquatucket Point,
for
okay.
a certificate of compliance request.
6 Aquatucket Point, proposed bulkhead replacement, maintenance dredging, and 2 float additions and landscaping.
Don Monroe from Coastal Engineering. We filed this on behalf of Mr. Carney, mainly because he would like to have some ongoing conditions primarily for maintenance dredging inside the slip area, which silts in quite often. So in discussing that with Amy, she indicated that we could file for the certificate of compliance, but there were other items that needed to be looked at and addressed, the planting. Obviously, the steel bulkhead was installed in the proper location because the as-built shows that. We didn't have any reference to the number of plants in the order of conditions, but we located them and showed them on the plan as to what was planted. I guess I'll let Amy speak to that, whether or not that complies. The other issue that we came across was we didn't have a copy of a plan that was referenced on the order of conditions showing the floats. We searched our records high and low and couldn't find any documented plan with the date that's shown on the amended order of conditions. Although tonight Amy indicated to me that she found some reference to a certain square footage of floats that were to be allowed, and the as-built shows the actual amount of floats that are out there, which is in excess of the square footage that you found. So in light of that, we'd like to make sure that Mr. Carney's in compliance, so we would probably be able to reduce it to 2 floats as indicated by the square footage, and then if he needed more square footage than that, we have up to 200, that we could apply for the additional beyond the 150, under like a notice or something like that. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'll go over it in
Okay.
in a minute, so.
So we're basically looking for a certificate of compliance on everything, but the primary ongoing conditions we are seeking is dredging that small slip area that he uses.
Okay, so, this all happened way before any of us, back in 1999, and actually 1997, right?
Mm-hmm.
Started. We permitted it in the 2000s. But, so essentially what happened is everything is in compliance to my knowledge that I can find, except for there's 3 floats that are on the outer wall, if you will, and if you wanna look at this, you can.
Oh, sorry, I didn't bring up.
Now I have a couple.
Okay.
I'll just do it this way, so you can see. So, there's the channel into Saquatucket. So as you're leaving Saquatucket, this is the last house on the left. They have quite a large kind of boat area in here. All of this is permitted and is as per the order of conditions, except for right here, there's 3 floats. In the original order of conditions, there was nothing permitted there. They came back, there's record of them coming back for an amendment for an additional float, for additional float side, or additional floats. However, neither myself or Coastal has the plan that reflects that. I did see it was Mark Burgess who originally did it.
He started the whole,
He
and then
started the whole
Roy
thing,
took it
and then
over.
Roy took it over.
Right.
Yep, you can take it. So, we did a little digging. They have a chapter 91, they have a 401 water quality, they have an order of conditions, and there is reference to additional float area in the amount of 150 square feet. What they have out there is 216 square feet of additional float area. So they would have to, and I literally just found this about half an hour before the meeting. So I'd have to verify that 150 wasn't absorbed somewhere else, kind of in the whole plan of things, but on all your other plans, it says existing float, doesn't talk about new. So here's pass this around, I need this back. This is the as-built with the 3 6x12s. In the area, you see the 3 additional ones. And I did pass around a photo, it's black and white, for you guys. That shows, Ernie's got it right here. I passed around that photo to show the 3 of them. I talked to John Rendon as well and said, hey, John, have these been there? And he said, yeah, they've, at least in the past few years that he's been there, they've been there. So it's not a new thing this year. So I spoke with Don to make sure that we can ensure that the waterways license was in fact recorded, otherwise it would be invalid. If you could send me that, that would be great. It's valid for 30 years if you did. Did we ever get a post-dredge plan survey? Did they ever have that?
That's what this as-built is, actually.
Okay,
'Cause,
even though it's many years after? but-
yes, the dredging, he did do some dredging
Okay,
2 or 3 years ago.
all right,
So 3
So
floats.
it doesn't silt in but like every 5 or 6
Right.
years in that area. So even though it's not right after the dredging was done, we did do
Okay.
a survey right after it was done, and the elevations are almost the same.
that was my next question, is does that plan accurately represent what's out there today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then there was some strange language that I noticed just a little bit ago in the waterways license that maintenance dredging may only occur within 10 years of the issuance of that permit.
Of the
But how
chapter
does-
90,
but
chapter
yeah.
91?
If a Chapter 91 permit is valid for 30 years, how can they only allow maintenance dredging for the first 10 after the issuance?
That was the way they used to write the old permits, and now they do a combined permit when
Okay.
dredging's involved, and Ken Chin issues that permit,
Alright.
and that will have a different different language. It'll be a longer period. The way we've done that in the past is under that Chapter 91 license, because it's a license for the dock, but they didn't separate out the permit part of it, which is what a dredge document is. It's a permit, it's not a license, because they can only license structures. So the reason they split the two into two
Right.
is to cover this issue of writing something in a Chapter 91 license that goes 30 years and trying to dictate it's only 10 years valid for the maintenance dredging. So what we do is we reapply to Ken Chin
Okay,
for what's called a dredge permit.
Yeah.
That will supersede that.
okay.
So once we get an okay from here, we have to go
I
back to Ken.
understand. It's clear as mud, right?
Make things easier.
So, basic, to me, what it boils down to is, I do have in the Chapter 91, and I do, for an additional 150 square feet of float, there is a record of it, that we did have an amended permit. I do have the amended order, except the problem is that unlike our amended orders right now, where it's very clear about what the amendment was for, it just says, this order is amended, and it references a new plan, but we don't have that plan, neither do they, so we can't, it doesn't say this is for an extra 150 square feet of float, it just says this is amended, and here's the new plan, which we don't have, so.
Just to build out on that, our system, our computer system, we have a central database, and we'd have separate satellite stations each computer can feed in, and quite often an engineer will do the work on his desktop,
Sure.
and then forget to put it into the main frame. That was years ago.
Yep.
We have a different tracking system now where an individual engineer can't just work on his station without dumping all the data that he worked on the end of the day. That's a new protocol that our techs have installed. So we won't have this issue come up again where someone was working on a plan, didn't have a mainframe copy of it. That way we can't, and
Yep.
Roy was our supervisor, and he's the one who did the work, because his is the name that's on the amended order.
Yep.
And quite often, he was notorious for doing that.
Yeah.
And his computer's not available once someone leaves the company, everything gets wiped out. So unfortunately,
Yep.
we didn't capture all that information.
So I guess, so my recommendation is that for now, you would have to remove one of the floats to be underneath 150 square feet for us to issue the certificate of compliance on this. The planting's correct, the dredging is correct as per the plan that they have here. The bulkhead is in good shape and where it's supposed to be. Everything else is good except for these floats. However, do you wanna ask for a certificate of compliance? Or do you want an extension, so you can come back and amend to get potentially up to 200 square feet of float there?
Is it covered under the Permit Extension Act? Is that why?
It had a bunch of extensions, extended to 4/5/11, so that would have been in the Permit Extension Act time. Hold on, just give me a second here. If anybody has any questions in the meantime, feel free.
Arlene, do you have any questions?
Well, after listening to the discussion we just had on Winchmere,
All right.
where these floats are in the navigable channel, I assume, or next to it, is that
Yeah.
an issue?
Well, they're there, if you look on the.
John had said there's no issue.
Oh, he
They're
has,
not,
okay.
yeah, I talked
There's
to
a-
him about it. and-
There's a permanent pier that protrudes out beyond the steel bulkhead. And these floats are tucked right in that area. So the solid pier makes it so that it's not in a navigable area. The navigable area is outside that line of the permanent pier that doesn't come out. So since the floats are inboard of that, it's not an issue for navigation. I think that's why John Rendon weighed in the way he did.
All right, good. Well, I have no other questions.
John, any questions?
It wouldn't be, it's not valid, Don, just so you know.
Yeah, I've got concerns about this. There are no plans for these floats. How are these authorized?
I don't know why we don't have a copy, but we have reference to it, and I don't, I don't, it's not on the, it wasn't put up the Registry of Deeds doesn't have it, I checked with the registry, they checked with the
You know,
registry.
2006 maintenance plan doesn't show the floats.
Right,
I don't remember the floats being there.
that's why the amendment came in, what, 2009 or so?
But I thought you said that we did have an approval for 150 square
We
feet
do.
of floats.
Is the state,
Written,
the
it's
state
written.
does, not us, right?
Let me check, because again, I just
Chapter 91
did it.
seems to, but not the Conservation Commission.
I'll have to find it.
I mean, so no plans.
Well, there
over-
was an amendment for extra floats that was filed, because I have the letter from Coastal asking for an amendment for additional float.
But we don't know where those floats were.
Right, we don't have the plan, we just have the
placed,
as-built now.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, they're too
I don't know how to
shallow.
I don't know how to fix it.
They're over the square footage. I don't know how these are authorized. I mean,
What is the depth there?
it's very shallow.
It's on the as-built plan.
I can't see,
gave mine
I
off.
can't see how it could meet the bylaws.
That's an area where they actually dredge up to it, Brad. Its depth is around 5 feet,
5 feet?
yeah. From the center of the steel bulkhead to this area here, that's an area that they keep dredged, right up to the bulkhead. And actually, the town does that dredging.
These plans show it more to what I'm familiar with, where it's quite shallow.
Well, we got an as-built plan right here that it shows the topo right in that area. And
Right.
right where the floats are, the 6-foot contour goes right through the middle of 6x12 and the 6x14.
Right.
And then the 5-foot contour, which is the next one, almost in between the two 6x12s. And we're in mean low water, so that's 5 feet at mean low water.
Yeah.
And that's consistently maintained in terms of dredging because of how close, you see the edge of the channel. They
I
cut
guess-
their slope up.
I guess I'd like to have a site visit, and I don't think I'm ready to act on this
Mhm.
without documentation of what really was authorized. I'm not convinced these are authorized structures.
I just don't know what else we can find. I mean, I've looked at this. I think you have a comment in the audience too, Walter. I don't know what else I can do to help to find this. I've done everything I can.
Arlene, we'll recognize you.
Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates. I don't know anything about this particular project, but I can answer Brad's question about process. And that is, if there is a Chapter 91 license that shows the floats, 91, Amy's shaking her head.
I don't have one.
Okay, if there were one, if you could find one, then 91 will not approve a plan unless there's evidence that the Conservation Commission has approved it first. So that would be, in the process. The other thing to check is to see whether they might have been added to a prior license as a minor amendment,
Yeah.
in which case David Hill or Mike Gervin, who's in the Boston office, will have a record both of the request, the plan, and the authorization.
Who was that, Mike Irvin?
Gervin, Girvan. If you can't find a phone number, if you call my office tomorrow, I'll get you one.
I'll find
Thank
it.
you, that's very good. David Hill is really thorough, and he's.
We've already checked all that. That's why we're here, is for direction from you guys. So
Yeah,
Well,
if it doesn't help as far as an as-built goes, then it sounds like we'd have to take a different route. And
okay.
Mr. Carney said, let's try this first because they've been there for a while and there is reference to a certain square footage of floats that were approved under an amended order. That's why we're here. We've already checked with Mike Gervin, there's nothing up there. We checked with Dave Hill, there's no letter of modification that was ever filed, so we don't have any other place to go except here because we need, like Arlene said, your approval either through a COC for what's there or a notice of intent.
right.
And so if we go,
Doesn't that imply that they were not authorized, they were placed there illegally?
No, it doesn't, because there's a reference in the amended order to square footage of floats that were allowed and permitted through the commission. The problem is there's no plan.
With no record.
Yeah. Well, it's not that there's no record, it's that it's a limited record because of two things that happened. One is our office went through a change. We had a person that left. We didn't, dot our i's and cross our t's as far as that plan goes. There could be others, I don't know. I hope not. And that there isn't a plan of record in the commission's files.
It's just really odd.
And is
At
it
both.
the original property owner? They don't
Yes.
have any
Yeah.
records either?
All Jim Carney knows is that he was allowed to put in floats, and he put in his floats, so
So,
why he's over the 150, I don't know.
so
But I don't know
What I
where the
did
150 came from.
it's in the narrative that Coastal provided to us.
Ah,
So in the project
So that's even further
description-
evidence there was.
In the project description for the notice of intent, this was for the amendment.
Mhm.
The purpose of this project is to rebuild an existing permitted bulkhead, reconfigure and license the existing pier, ramp, and floats, and add 150 square feet of floats and perform maintenance dredging. The existing are permitted under DEP license number blah, 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 and then there is an additional 150 square feet of floats that will require permitting and are requested as part of this notice of intent. The additional square footage for these floats are proposed to be licensed. So that's in your letter, which we then issued an order of conditions. The amendment, all the amendment is, and this is not, like I said, how we do it now, but it's checked off as amended, so we know it's not the original. But then all it does is reflect a new plan of record. It doesn't give any new special conditions like we would normally now say 3 additional floats and the amount of 150 square feet are permitted or whatever. It doesn't say that. All it does is a new plan of record, and that's what we can't find.
So it
So
sounds like the
it's-
Chapter 91 application fell through the cracks too, because typically what ends up happening at our office, we'll get the order of conditions, record it, and that triggers our permitter to set up all the files to file for the next set of permits. And since we already checked with Dave Hill and Mike Gervin, it sounds like we never finished off getting the 150 square foot of floats
Yeah.
addition through Chapter 91.
In your water quality certification application as well, on the front page, because I got the front page of it, as well as the abutter notification of public notice, it also says here, for additions, float additions and maintenance dredging. But again, I don't have that water quality certification or plan, so I don't know if that ever got filed. But there is, it must have been, because it must have been filed, because we have a copy of the notification.
Now, the more we get into this, the more, that's right about the time when they were trying to split the duties of the Chapter 91 process. And they went through a kind of a horrific time because they couldn't figure out how or who was going to do the review.
Yeah.
And then they finally came up with a combined permit that Ken would review for anything that had a structure with dredging combined, so that a permit would get issued for the dredging, then a license would get issued through
Yeah.
Boston. Now, that's in place now, but it was in process through '09 to now. So there could have actually been a file sent up to Dave Hill during that period, and we've noticed that some documents are in such a long wait for the Chapter 91, up to 270 days or longer, that they can get stacked on top of one another and lost in the shuffle. I'm not saying that's what happened, but the more I'm hearing this, the more I realize that there's more than one thing that was going on at the time that could make it the situation we're in.
Maybe it wouldn't hurt, since we now, like, literally half hour before this meeting, I found all this information out. Maybe it wouldn't hurt if people want to take a look at it, and we can do a little more digging. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to ask for 2 more weeks, considering
Well, I'm gonna contact
magnitude
Ken
of-
Chin to see if he has a, because sometimes we would send an 8.5 by 11
Yeah,
copy of the plan.
It was Ken Chin, and then you also sent it to, I'll give you the names. No, it's just Ken Chin. Thought there was more.
I can find out through Ken if there's something that he has in his file, because he's pretty meticulous
I was
about his
just gonna
files.
say, he's meticulous.
How
So
about,
I can look at it that way, Brad, to see if there's actually a plan that got filed
That
with
would
that.
match the plan that is mentioned in our amended order.
Mm-hmm.
how about the overall square footage? Is it additive under a bylaw? There's over 400 feet of square footage of floats on that inside section.
That's all permanent
That
pier
was
now.
all permitted
That was
prior.
that was, under the amendment, was changed to a fixed pier.
Yeah.
It's a
There's
fixed-
no, that's
It's a
fixed.
pier.
Yeah, that's the old plan. That's the plan that was under the first application or the first order.
Those are no longer floats? They come
Those are
in and
no
out?
longer
They're
floats.
fixed.
They're fixed. Yeah. And that was done under the amended, and that's even mentioned
Yep.
in the amended order that, under the description, that
Yep.
the
I-
existing floats were gonna be converted to a permanent pier.
I guess I'd like to see as much documented as possible. I
Yeah.
mean, this whole section cut out existing salt marsh. I don't know how it was approved. And
Well, that was
that's a
licensed
different-
back in,
That's a different
the
issue, but it's still,
Yeah.
it raises flags as to
Right, it
what-
wouldn't happen today, but.
what really happened at this site, and so I'd like to see some documentation on those floats.
Let's have a motion to continue this for another 2 weeks, and you got a site
That'll be the
plan
20th.
for a site visit.
I move that we continue the request for a certificate of compliance for 6 Saquatucket Point for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Need a second?
I'll second.
Aaron seconded. Any discussion of the motion?
This is yours, right, Amy?
If not, all in favor of
The as-bills as well.
continuing it for 2 weeks, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No?
Aye.
Motion
I need an
carries.
as-bill.
Okay.
Don, I'll get you what I have that references it.
The as-built? Or is it the
No, I
small
need
one?
a small one with a letter, please.
Okay.
Alrighty, we'll keep digging.
Okay.
Thanks.
Extension requests, 23 Snow Inn Road. Demolish existing hotel, Snow Inn, construct replacement hotel and new 12-unit condominium building. Reorganize parking and circulation, utility connections, drainage and landscaping. You're on, Arlene.
So because some of you were not here for this, actually, it might not be you, I asked Arlene to kind of revisit so you could see what the permit was for, because this is such a big one. Thank you, and if you can give one to Marie as well for the record, that would be great, thank you.
Good evening. Arlene Wilson, A.M. Wilson Associates, here for Witchmere Harbor functions. And this, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but as a first walkthrough for some of you, the Snow Inn site is about 15.6 acres altogether. This project, which is up here, is about 1.7 acres of the upland portion only of the site. The area is already long developed. What we're going to do is demolish
That shows
the
up.
western half of the Snow-In building, which is the old hotel section. The east portion of that building is the wastewater treatment plant. It's staying, it has to continue to operate through all of this. And then what's under this, which is the new building that they propose to build, are existing parking and circulation areas. So this is the side view of the new Snow-In building, proposed Snow-In building, and the side view of the condominium building seen from Snow-In Road as you go down the hill. This view is looking back to the north and sort of an oblique view. What I've given you in the handouts are two of the handouts that were in the notice of intent. And what they show on the first sheet in red are the new buildings superimposed over the existing stuff that's there. And you can see there are some very minor changes to the footprint of the Snow-In hotel area, mostly on the north facade, which really is not in your jurisdiction, and a little bit on the side, which is. They're going to do a window well so that they can get some light in the lower level. The construction for that building is pretty standard. There'll be a poured foundation and stick built over it. But the condominium building, and there are proposed 12 condominiums in that building, is a little unusual for the area, for the whole Cape for that matter. What we're proposing is to build that building on pilings with parking underneath. Part of the reason for that is that the area under that building is in the floodplain, and you can't have residential uses below the flood elevation. So this lifts the residential floors well above the flood elevation, lets us utilize the ground for parking and drainage. And under the stormwater regulations, because this site is 100% developed, this is what they call a replacement project or redevelopment project. And so what the requirement is to make the drainage situation better than what currently exists. Would be hard not to do that. There is no constructed drainage in this area at all right now. But the circulation areas here are dry laid brick, and the parking areas are grass, so most of it infiltrates. But with the building overhead and parking, there is a proposal as part of this project to do constructed infiltrative drainage under the building. It will take the drainage from the roof of the building itself, as well as whatever comes off the automobiles. There are traps to get oil and grease. So that's an improvement over what's there now. There is a significant mitigation that's proposed with this project. There's a lot of new planting that will be in the parking areas around it. And then on the first floor deck is essentially a roof garden, although it isn't a roof, but it will operate that way. And the plantings are predominantly with natives, and whatever grass there is on that level is going to be at eco-turf or a similar mixed fescue lawn. The new at-grade plantings total just under 4,000 square feet. The native plantings on the building deck are about 1,300. So it's 5,000, better than 5,000 square feet of new mitigation plantings with this project. If you look at the second sheet, there is a comparison of site coverage within your jurisdiction. And there is about 5,500 square feet of new hardscape in the 50. Under this plan, a variance was voted partly because of all the mitigation plantings and partly because the 50-foot buffer in this area doesn't really communicate with any resource area. It's bounded all the way around by buildings and parking. So the extra 55 square feet is in this corner. And there are buildings all up and down, parking all the way around. It's just a fluke of the way the site it lays out.
Topography,
It's long
yeah.
and skinny, and developed with retainage everywhere. It's, so, and all the new work is connected to the wastewater treatment plant. There is a pollutant limitation of 5 parts per million on nitrogen loading out of that plant. And it operates reasonably well, better than most of the wastewater treatment plants I've ever known. So I'd be happy to try and answer questions for you.
Thank you, Arlene. Amy? you
And this
read
is
off.
just an extension request, but because it was such a big project and not everybody was here, kind of just went through it again. There's no changes proposed. They have not been able to build within the past few years. So as there's no proposed changes, I would recommend a 3-year extension for this project.
Okay, Ernie, any questions?
Well, I wasn't here for the original proposal, so I don't know what sort of.
You can vote, because this was years
No,
ago.
I understand that, but I'm not sure what went into the thought process to approve this to begin with. You mentioned that part of it was outside of our jurisdiction other than that
Most of it
55 square feet, but is that also taken into account? Is that 55 square feet in the 100,
0 to 50.
0 to 50 off of the access to Winchmere Harbor, right?
There was a net increase in 55 square feet of hardscape in the 0 to 50. So that's where the variance came in. You can kind of see on these lines where our jurisdiction is, the
Right.
dotted lines. And the vast majority of the building is not within our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might
Oh,
be.
it's this little corner down
Yep,
here, is
that's
that
it.
it?
And that's because of topography. It's not proximity necessarily to the channel. It's is due to floodplain and topography of the land, the slope. It's just essentially because they had so much more development even closer to the water, and this area was parking really now.
This project also has the benefit of site plan review from the planning board, which has been extended, and special permit from the ZBA, and variance, which have been extended. And there's a permit from the historical committee, because the in-building is
More than
is
100.
more than 100 years old. So they're happy with the new design.
So they've all signed off on this?
They've all
then?
signed off. It's very complicated to try and schedule the construction for this operation, because they need to keep most of the facilities open and functioning. So they have a very small construction window. The variance actually now requires, the variance extension requires that the snow-in building be framed and closed in, I believe by November of 2017. So they, they can only work in the off-season. If it's a bad winter, they get hammered.
Is that the beach where they're gonna put the dredging sand from the,
Yes.
Oh, it is, huh?
Oh, they're not, are they gonna put the dredge spoil here?
They said they want on the Winchmere property, yeah.
Okay.
It should maybe go someplace that needs it more, but
Yeah,
Well-
one of the things that happens here is that this property is accreting.
yeah,
It's been accreting since the late 1800s.
right.
So every time somebody goes to survey it, the water line moves and
Yes.
they get more land.
More land.
Yeah, on that side of the
Pretty deep.
jetty. You can
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
difference.
If they put the dredge
The jetty.
spoil on the beach, that will stop. Because once the law of the shore says that if you contribute to the accretion yourself,
Oh,
then you
You may
don't
wanna-
own the accretion anymore.
chat with,
Yeah,
Coastal.
so
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
that's a problem then.
Yeah, there are other places. If
There's
it's only 99 square feet, it may
Like
go
cubic yards, yeah, it
up-
could go
up to
anywhere.
the north of the restaurant. There are
Oh,
other
yeah, we
places.
wouldn't put any sand probably up there.
All right, so
Let's see.
There's up-
if this
there's
has
Yeah.
gone through
above
all
mean
these
high water.
discussions and everything beforehand, I have no other questions.
Okay.
Is the snow end being used now?
Yes. Currently, all of the administrative offices are in there. There is a small fitness facility, which is actually over the wastewater treatment plant. And they do use some of those rooms.
Okay, I'm just curious, okay.
But the problem is that there isn't enough space even to renovate them to meet code. Once they start working
Yeah.
on it,
Yeah,
then they've got all kinds of problems. The staircases are too steep, there's no elevator, the sprinklers are a problem.
okay.
So
Right.
this will let it all come up to code.
Brad?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to move that we approve a 3-year extension on the order conditions for 23 Snow Inn Road.
Need a second?
I second it.
Second, John. Any further discussion of the motion? Not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please sign, we need 4 signatures. Arlene, do you want this to be mailed? Or do you want to pick it up
Did Hoyt Road,
by the end of the week?
Hoyt Road.
they continue, or?
Well, I gotta, might be somebody here.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be ready by tomorrow afternoon. But you can always call.
it up if it's not here
All right,
Oh, we just haven't gone over it.
okay. Remind, what are you here for?
I'm Julie Kavanaugh.
Oh, Julie, hi!
Liaison.
Sorry, I didn't even recognize you at first, I'm so sorry. So, commission, this is our new liaison, Julie.
And Ernie, Walter, John, and Brad. Welcome to Conservation Commission. Okay. Okay, 6 Hoyt Road.
Yep.
That's a certificate of compliance?
It is. This was for the demo of an existing dwelling and construction of a new with the relocation of a shed. This backs up to John Sennett's bog, just to kind of give you a little perspective on where it is. I did a site visit 2 weeks ago and checked the footprint of the house and the distances. The house has been built per the approved plan. The mitigation plantings have survived at a success rate of 90% for 2 growing seasons. There were 10 plants and 9 of them look good.
90%.
There's no irrigation or fertilization taking place within our jurisdiction. There is out in the front, which is outside, we can't say no to that. And roof runoff, instead of dry wells, does go into down drip lines and into stone trenches. I would recommend the approval of certificate of compliance for Henry Price at 6 White Road.
Any questions? Okay, we need a motion to,
I move we approve the certificate of compliance for 6 White Road.
Okay, need a second?
Second?
Second, Brad, all in favor of approving certificate of compliance for 6 Hoyt Road, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Motion carries. Orders for conditions, 424 Pleasant Lake Avenue. We have two orders of conditions for 424 Pleasant Lake Avenue.
Let me get them out. Let's do the house first.
Single-family dwelling.
Bless you. I wanted this to reflect the dock permit a little bit as well, so numbers 12 and 13 on the specials.
Why is
Reflect
that,
that.
Amy? I noticed
Because the
that.
path was on both proposals, like half the path was on the dock proposal on the bottom half, and the top half of the path was on the house proposal, kind of. So,
It's probably immaterial, but
yeah, but I was like, well, might as well reflect both, right?
Looks good to me.
I had no concerns with this.
Okay, need a motion to approve the orders of conditions for the house on 424 Pleasant Lake Avenue.
I move we approve the 424 Pleasant Lake Avenue order of conditions for the site and sewage disposal system design.
Okay, thank you, Ernie, and need a second.
Second?
Second, Brad, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
And we'll do the dock for the same property. I did put in number 8 that storage of the dock is to be outside the wetland resource areas and the 100-foot buffer unless the sections are hung off the ground on the boathouse.
That is certainly an upgrade with the boathouse from what's there.
I don't even know if I could call it a boathouse.
I
It's
know.
like a lean-to.
Right, that's a nice upgrade in value.
It didn't have a roof, did it?
It did.
Okay.
It did, barely, but it did.
Number 6, Amy, it says the decking for the pier shall be seasonal as shall the dock. So do we distinguish between a dock and a pier
We do. The pier is the section that goes,
leading up to the dock from the landward side?
yes, if it crosses like a bordering vegetated wetland or something like that, yep.
Okay.
I still have to think sometimes when I do it.
Is Big Feet number 6 a manufacturer's name, or is that,
That's just, I don't know.
that seems not very descriptive? But I don't
They do say Bigfoot footings on all the plans and in the descriptions. That's what they call them, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I just said feet because it's numerous. I can check that though.
Yeah, I'm sure if it connects to the plan, that's what's important.
Yeah, yep, it does.
Those big feet are attached to the dock, so when they lift the dock out at the end of the season, the feet come
The
with it.
feet come up with it, yep.
Yeah, you might want to just distinguish that. It sounds like it's going to sit, the big feet are on the bottom of the
Yeah,
pond.
it just sits, yeah,
Yeah, so.
sitting on bottom of pond. Okay. Go back to that.
I have no comments.
I move that we accept the order conditions for 424 Pleasant Lake Avenue and the
Okay.
proposed dock site plan.
Okay, we have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Second. Ernie, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carries. The next item is 13 Whippoorwill Lane, which has to do with removing 2 to 3 trees and the pruning of shrubs and low tree limbs from 2 view corridors to Buck's Pond. A 4-foot wide on-grade dirt path is also permitted to the water. And we have 8 special conditions.
The thing that's critical with this one, and she's pretty good about coming and asking me, is that first on-site visit with the contractor to make sure we're all on the same page. 'Cause it's actually very minimal work that needs to get done, if it's done right.
Under number 2, you might want to capitalize gravely. Brand, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a trade name, yeah.
That's the only change I had.
I have no comments.
Need a motion?
I move we accept the order conditions for 13 Whippoorwill Lane.
Okay, a second? Got a second from Ernie, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye, anyone opposed, no, motion carries. Okay, now, I don't think we have minutes for June 15th.
Nope.
Okay, and we have a agenda item, a draft request for proposals for bogs at Bell's Neck.
I'm not done with these other two, I just put them on there in case I
Okay.
had something for you.
Okay,
I have a couple other little things, Walter, if that's
Okay.
okay?
okay,
Not reasonably anticipated. One, we were supposed to have a show cause hearing tonight for 34 Lothrop. This was the person who built an addition and a porch on their home without any permits. And it's not his fault, they're not here tonight. We had originally said, okay, this was gonna be the drop dead date for it. The person who is doing his wetland survey that he's retained has had some family, medical issues. So she has not been able to get out there. She's assured me she's getting out this week. So because it's not his issue, I would say let's give him one more go at it, but I told him on the phone the other day, I said, if this person isn't following through, you need to hire somebody else and do this, because it's starting to drag.
He was going to get fined, right, if there was no response? but-
Yes, but he did call me, he let me know what was going on, he said, and I touched base with this person, and they confirmed that. So it's not he wants to see some end to this anyways, so I would recommend putting him on, continuing him for a show cause hearing until the 20th of this month. And we would need a vote on that technically, especially if we're gonna do enforcement action. I wanna make sure we have votes.
okay, need a motion?
So I move we extend the show cause hearing for 34 Lothrop Avenue to the
20th.
20th meeting,
July,
Conservation
yeah.
Committee meeting on July 20th.
Need a second?
Seconded?
A second, all in favor of continuing this another 2 weeks, indicate by saying aye.
I just have one question
Okay.
for Amy's proposal.
Okay,
If this gentleman at 30 Lothrop Road cannot find someone else to do it, or the person continues to be employed by him, but is not able to complete her work for whatever her personal reasons, where does this leave us with the validity of this man's, another 2 weeks?
No, I would say after this, we start finding him. If he wants to have somebody else, like such as this person who should have been doing the delineation, pay those fines because it is her fault, they he can take that up with her,
This
but
be-
ultimately it is
Will
his
this be a
responsibility.
written notice to him? I mean, will he know this for a fact?
Yes,
that he
I'll write
needs
it
to
up. I told him on the phone the other day, but I will write it up.
Okay,
Including reference to the fines.
okay, in that case, give him
Yes.
2 weeks, so.
Yep.
Okay. It's been motion made and second, need a vote, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Yes,
There, I also have written, and I think I emailed it to, I'm not sure, a letter to the McNeelys over on Mill Road. If you don't, I'll just, basically, this was the clear cut at the entrance to Saquatucket on the right-hand side, as you're leaving the harbor. Right next to where we allowed the revetment to be extended. I want to write him a letter, because I met with his representative, and he's been hesitantly compliant so far, and doesn't, essentially, has kind of balked at using the person that he's agreed to be doing some of the restoration work out there. So I wanted to write him a nice letter, thanking him for his compliance thus far, in doing the restoration work that he's required to do, but that he does need to follow the landscape plan that he's been approved that he has to do, and if he is not to use the contractor that has done that landscape mitigation plan, then they have to come back to the commission and prove that the new firm is qualified to do the work. So that's essentially what I would like to have Walter sign as chairman. If you want, do you want me to read the whole, do you have it?
Yep.
Okay.
I just got a question, the second to last sentence, where they must prove to the Conservation Commission they are capable of carrying out the work as permitted. Do you want to say they must demonstrate at a hearing, or they must,
No,
that they don't need to come in, they just have to provide something to you?
to me, and then I would give it to you, yeah.
Okay.
They don't need to come to a
They
hearing.
don't have to. All right. But
I
guess
think they're
they-
going to use this person once they, basically, they've been using his crew, but they've balked at having him as being an on-site supervisor, and a small error was made that was caught, and, can't have many more of those.
Yeah.
This is a big violation, so,
so I need a motion to approve my signing this letter
for the McNeelys.
to the Manilys. Yeah.
I move we approve the letter to the McNeelys,
Yep, and just have Walter sign it.
evidencing their issues with the existing landscaping that's being done on their site.
Okay, I need a second.
Second?
Second, all in favor of my signing this letter indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, approved. Anyone opposed? No? Motion carries.
Okay, I have a
Just
stop,
to-
okay.
I should have brought this up earlier, but I think, it looks like you need to add a dear so-and-so and a subject header.
Typically I don't put a dear so-and-so if it's the names on the top.
That's all you do? You often put
but-
a subject header?
Yeah, I can do a subject header. Now it's been signed.
Outside of discussion, you can veto this if you like.
That's a
Already
legal document.
signed.
That's a legal document. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, though. Okay,
All right,
I'm gonna postpone any election of officers until the next meeting when we have more people here.
yep. I don't know if all of you know, Brad, you weren't at the party. Bob Sarantis has decided not to continue on with the commission.
Really?
Yep. We do have a new member coming on. He was approved by the selectmen last meeting. His name is Rob Mader. Hopefully, he'll be at the next meeting. He is a local landscaper, so. And, yeah, he didn't want it he didn't want a big deal made out of it. I don't know the reasons, really, just didn't, so.
And also, for
Too
your
bad.
information, we have one person who's took someone to the hospital tonight who's not here.
We normally carry 7, so we're still looking for new people.
Bob was coming up, I thought.
He was really good.
Pretty functional, getting better all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have one more thing. I have a stop work order. So this is kind of a, this is an interesting case. I sent some pictures around this evening of some tracks and some vegetation clearing happening over at 9 Cranberry, 9 Cranberry Way. Mr. Eldridge of Pleasant Lake Farms, I think, not Pleasant Lake Farms, but Starboard Landscaping is operating on land that is currently owners unknown and has led me to believe over the past few years that it is his property when it is not. He's not paying taxes on it. He has not shown me proof of it. And he has done work well within 100 feet of a wetland, actually right up to the edge of the wetland, claiming agricultural exemptions for the work. So this is it's gonna be a interesting go, put it that way. So at first thing I thought was a stop work order and having him come in for a show cause hearing. I will not be here the first meeting in August. I didn't want to do it next meeting, we're kind of full. So I said stop work and then August 17th. He's making pastures up there. But again, it's not, it comes back to a different owner, but it's definitely owners unknown and is not, the taxes are not being paid on that land. So it is not his land. So he needs to either prove that it is and that he's agriculturally exempt, or he's gonna need to do some restoration and get off there. So that's what I had written. Do you want me to read it to you? I don't know if it was in your packets.
Just a photo, I think.
Okay, so, dear Mr. Eldridge, it has come to the attention of the Conservation Commission that you have done work within the 100-foot buffer zone to a wetland at 9 Cranberry Trail, map 78, parcels J3 and J1-1, in violation of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and Harwich Wetlands Protection Bylaw. This land is not owned by you according to our records, and the work that has been completed is not agriculturally exempt. You must immediately cease and desist any activity on such parcels within the 100 feet of a wetland. You must prove to the town that you own this property, and if you are able to do so, you must file a request for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission. If you do not own this property, you must provide a restoration plan acceptable to the Conservation Commission and complete this work. You have been scheduled for a show cause hearing in front of the Conservation Commission at their meeting on August 17th. Sincerely, each of you.
And what if he abandons the property, doesn't set foot on it any longer, and doesn't show up on the 17th?
I know he did the work, so he will start getting
We can find him.
fined. But we can make that evident if you want on there. If you want, I can hold off and I can have you sign this at the next meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
Do you have an idea what time frame he clear cut this area?
over the past 4 years,
Past 4 years.
up to this past
So
spring,
it-
up to this past spring.
if I'm reading between the lines right, it doesn't make a difference whether it's his property, he can prove it's his property, or somebody else's. If he's responsible for clear cutting this area, he has to simply reforest.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah,
Fine.
he can't just abandon it. Before, so it's, the way it happened is, he was doing the work, I went out there, he said, it's my property, I have agricultural exemptions, blah, blah, blah.
Would he have agricultural exemptions? I mean,
If-
that allowed him within 4 years to cut?
He would not have
He
them
would
if it's
not
not
have.
his property. If it's either his if it's his property, he does. If it's not his property, he needs to have permission from the landowner, which it's owners unknown, to do it. And he would need something from the Conservation Commission in the form of a permit to, or determination of applicability, saying he's exempt. He doesn't have that.
Doesn't he have to notify the Conservation Commission even if his agricultural exemption on his
He's
property?
supposed to.
Right.
A lot of them don't, but we try. It's a little disconcerting if this is not his land, and he's been telling me this whole time that it is. So, and some other potential owner, not potential owner because he's not paying fees, but potential person who's interested in this land to own it, brought it to my attention
Ah.
that it is not actually his.
Do they know whose it is?
They say it's also owners unknown. This is somebody
When was the
in
last
the Board
dated,
of Assessors.
when was the last dated entry of ownership? I mean, how long
I
ago
don't
that you
know.
could identify
I
that
don't
it was
know.
owned by X or Y or Z?
I don't know. I can look into that, but it's, more and more. And, you know, the red flag started to go up with it, so neighbors have been complaining of the noise and machines and stuff like that, and, so.
Do you need a motion to accept the letter or anything like that?
You want to amend it?
I was gonna amend it to state that something about the fines.
Strike
That
the-
fines may be levied should you not respond to this and attend the
That should be
meeting.
stated, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll amend it.
or
You don't
just
have to
want
sign it tonight.
Legal action.
Well, I need to put something on here to amend
Yeah,
it, so,
But I'm just saying, rather than fines, maybe.
yeah, you could say legal action. I'd like to get this out before the next meeting, so maybe if it's possible, if I fix it up, you guys could come in and sign it when you're passing
Do you
by
wanna
town
just-
hall.
Do you want to make the changes and just tell us what they are, and we can approve it pending those?
Well, I need to have you sign, so I
Oh,
can't,
okay.
yeah.
We can just,
Need a motion to adjourn?
Anything else?
Hold on one second. I don't think so, but let me look.
anything on our, anything new on our, this thing that we received?
Oh, I can't talk too much, we have to talk about that in executive session, but the summons that you all received at your home, you do not need to worry about it. The town lawyers represent you individually as well as the commission as a whole. I finally did get mine on behalf of you all, so.
We don't have to respond to it.
I'm responding, well, council's responding for all of us.
Yep.
So I'll put an executive session on, if you can make a note of that. We'll put an executive session on the 20th to bring you up to speed on that.
Okay.
For 11 Harbor Way.
So just so you know, I got copied rubber banded to my front door as well as one in the mail too, so.
They're persistent.
Very persistent.
It was unusual that, I told Ernie, that typically is not how it goes. Typically, if we're being sued, it comes to me and not to your individual homes, so.
He's a Boston lawyer.
So.
By the book.
Perfect. Hope that didn't influence Bob's decision.
He's very interested in seeing how it plays out, so. That's all I've got. I will fix this letter. I'll let you know when it's ready, and if, you know, in the next week or so, if you don't mind swinging by to sign it, that way I can get it out the door. So I can,
Okay.
I'm sure he'll be in touch with me, and, we can start processing
Sounds
things.
like time's of the essence on that.
Motion to adjourn?
I'd like to, yeah.
So moved.
Got a motion adjourn? All in favor of adjourning, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Aye, we're adjourned.